Hi, and welcome to Pennsylvania Newsmakers, and thanks for watching. Well, it was an amazing week in the Capitol where a new speaker was elected, a new Speaker of the House of Representatives, that is, just not the one everyone expected. Back in a moment.
This is Pennsylvania Newsmakers, a fast-paced, unrehearsed weekly discussion with and about the leaders who shape your world. And now, here's your host.
Hi, welcome to the program. Well, it was quite a week in Harrisburg last week, and boy, to assess it, to get out the facts of it, we couldn't have two better people to do it. It's point, counterpoint. That's where we get a Democrat and a Republican, and sometimes it's not all that difficult to get them to disagree, but they often agree. Joining me, as often is the case, is Mike Sturla. He's a House member, a Democrat from the city of Lancaster. He's been in the legislature for a number of years. And Mike Turzai, we have two Mikes. Representative Turzai represents a district in Allegheny County. If you want the number, the 28th. Gentlemen, welcome.
Hey, thanks very much.
All right, guys, I'm going to tell you something. On Tuesday of last week, you all went to Harrisburg expecting to see a battle between the Speaker of the House, John Purcell, a Republican, seeking another term, the Democrats putting up Bill DeWeese, their minority leader. It was not rumored, but expected that at least one Democrat would vote for the Republican Speaker, a 102-100 Democratic majority. Out of the blue, in the couple of days preceding that, meetings were held, and as a result of that meetings, a Philadelphia Republican, just not John Purcell, was elected Speaker, Denny O'Brien, in a stunning move by the Democrats. Now, we can get in. First of all, let me get your reaction, and then we can talk about what all that means. Mike, we'll start with you.
Well, I mean, I think Denny has been a vote that has jumped party lines on occasion to vote for the issues that he cares about. And a lot of those are the issues that the Democrats care about. So, he comes from a district that's 65% Democratic district. We see him as an ally, and seemed like a good compromise.
Now, he had voted. He had cast a lot of votes in the last session, actually a couple sessions, for Governor Rendell's agenda. Is that your point?
Yeah.
So your argument is that you think, and also he's going to permit the Democrats to chair. Go ahead.
Right. Yeah. What he's basically said is he'll allow us to be in the majority like we are.
Mm-hmm.
Representative Purcell, the former speaker, had said that was not going to be the case.
Yeah. Okay, Mike, you came to Harrisburg on Tuesday. How stunned were you?
Well, I mean, people were definitely surprised. There's no doubt. Denny O'Brien is somebody who has often, been with the other side on a variety of issues. Denny voted for the pay raise. Denny was, certainly big in favor of expanded gambling. He's been for the tax increases in the budget in terms of spending. From what I gather, post-mortem, that Governor Rendell, I watched his press conference, put this deal together, got Denny O'Brien, Josh Shapiro, Bill DeWeese, probably Mike Sturla, and got a deal where Denny O'Brien, who's from Philadelphia, agreed to side with them.
Mm-hmm. Now, we can. I don't think we want to get inside politics on this, but I think here's the big. I think there are two big points I want to ask you guys about. Mike, I'll turn to you first. Look, reform is on everybody's mind. The legislature opened it up, more transparency. Every conversation in Harrisburg surrounding this election had to do with changing the way business is done in Harrisburg. Take it from there. What do you think now is a prospect for the changes that have been debated over the last year and a half?
I mean, I think there are some changes that would be good and are necessary, but I'm more concerned about what it is that we get accomplished as opposed to the process by which we get it accomplished. Just as an example, some of the reform proposals are that, we have 24 hours before we vote on anything. What that means is we have 24 hours for lobbyists to do their job, if you look at it from the other perspective.
Sure.
There are times where we come to agreement as legislators, as duly elected people, and we go vote on something. Now there'll be 24 hours for the lobbyists to go work with people and try and change their minds and do those kind of things. So, if we adopt a rule like that. So, reform is a double-edged sword. So it's not always just, if you just make changes, why things are going to be a lot better. Sometimes they get a little worse.
Yeah. Now, if I understand this, the new speaker has said he's going to put together a bipartisan committee, obviously people from Democrats and Republicans, to go out and hold some hearings. You caught that, to get into this business of reform. Well, do you think this makes reform more likely, given this new arrangement? And what do you think? Go ahead.
Terry, I think both reforms in terms of process are important, but I agree with Mike. We substantively probably differ what the main changes have to occur in Pennsylvania. I think you're going to see reforms about process. The one thing I liked what Speaker Purcell had put on the table. A lot of people have policy disagreements with John, but the fact of the matter is he had put together a rules reform package, right. And people were excited about that, and I think we need to continue to push that forward.
We're going to go to break, and when we come back, I want to talk about Rendell's agenda, because I think, as you pointed out, you got a lot of big policy substance take up. There's some huge issues that confront the state. And do you think we are going to enter an era? Everybody this week was talking about bipartisanship, less polarization. Both of you have to think that's good. If in fact it's meaningful, that you can all sit down and work out your differences. Are you optimistic about that side of it?
No.
No? Go ahead. Why? You think it's going to be the
fact that you have people already taking shots at Denny O'Brien, I think there's going to be a lot of, and there was some animosity on the Democratic side, and right from the get-go about this speaker's race.
We've got to go to break quickly. What do you think?
I think there's real differences between the governor's agenda and a solid Republican agenda.
Okay, when we come back, we're going to talk about the governor's agenda, specifically a number of items that we're going to hear from Governor Rendell about in the next couple of weeks, leading up, of course, to his inauguration on January 16, and then his address to the General Assembly, the budget message in February. Stay with us. We'll be back in a moment.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is presented by the State System of Higher Education, 14 state-owned universities. The state system is the largest provider of higher education in Pennsylvania, and by the Hospital and Health System Association of Pennsylvania, working towards a healthy Pennsylvania.
Welcome back to Pennsylvania Newsmakers. It's Point Counterpoint with two Mikes, Mike Sturla and Mike Turzai, legislators, Sturla a Democrat, Turzai a Republican. We're chatting about these big events of the past week in the legislature with a new speaker, Denny O'Brien, a Republican. Not just the speaker, everyone expected to be elected when legislators convened on Tuesday of last week to get that job done. All right, gentlemen, both of you, I think, have rightfully earned a reputation in Harrisburg of sort of policy wonks. You're guys who get into policy, you're interested in it. Mike Turzai, let me start with you. Governor Rendell is going to have a very ambitious agenda, and I want to go through some of it. Do you think that what happened last Tuesday helps get that agenda through, makes it more likely that his agenda gets through, or less likely, before we get into the specifics of it?
Well, probably a little more likely, more likely. He still has the Senate to deal with.
Correct. That's right.
If the Democrats keep control of the House, certainly they're going to have to go along with the governor's agenda. And in many ways, he helped engineer keeping the majority. I think they owe him big time.
Yeah, well, he put up $8 million as a number that is top aid that he put into a lot of these legislative campaigns, right? Put in a lot of money to help.
Yeah.
All right, what do you think? Is this a better, do you think governor has a better chance with his agenda now?
Well, I think he had a good chance beforehand. I think it's an agenda that the people of Pennsylvania are looking for. I mean, you look at the numbers that he won by, and the fact that as Democrats we campaigned on a lot of those same issues and won by more than 200,000 votes in the state of Pennsylvania on those very same issues.
Terry, here's the thing, though. We're going to get better as a party in contrasting ourselves with Governor Rendell. I honestly believe that the people of Pennsylvania do not buy into expanded gambling. I mean, what's the first thing Bill DeWeese said between the election and the new year?
Put some
expanded gambling to card games.
But that's not the governor's agenda. The governor's agenda is expanding health care
for 4 years.
For
4 years, the governor's agenda was gambling was the panacea for Pennsylvania, and it still is. Let's face it. Increased taxes, more borrowing, expanded gambling. That's the governor's solution to Pennsylvania's problems. And you know what? Manufacturing jobs keep flittering away.
Okay, Mike, let's go to some of the things that we think the governor is likely to recommend. One of the things, are you guys going to revisit property tax reform? You know, many, and particularly Mike's and Representative Turzai's caucus want to do the sales tax, you know, raise sales tax.
Right.
Do you think that's... And
I just thought he said he was against expanding taxes.
Well, you're reducing the property tax, I guess. But go ahead. Do you think it's going to be a big? You're going to have a revisit that?
I think we'll probably revisit that issue. I think it's something that the constituents are going to demand. I mean, they talked about it during the campaign. When I was out campaigning, people would say to me, "Okay, so you know, there's $1 billion coming with gaming, but you know, what else are you going to do? Because that's still not going to get me enough."
Very much, yeah. All right, gaming reform. Last term, you guys did a substantial number of amendments. Where does that go, in your judgment?
The Republicans got some changes to clean up that gaming bill. We didn't do enough. Law enforcement's got to get has to be really better organized, I think, with respect to gaming. Talked to the Attorney General, Tom Corbett.
Right.
He said, you know, everybody would cite New Jersey as a model. Gambling enforcement was separate and distinct from their gambling board. It fell under the Attorney General's arm. We need to do that. Secondly, these salaries for these gaming commissioners, what are they doing now? They've handed out they've handed out the prize packages. Those salaries going to go way down.
They're what, in the $165,000 range or something?
And that gambling board with all these people, you know, getting indicted and charged, somebody's got to go in there and take a look at them.
So you think there's going to be gaming? Okay, we're going to go to break. When I come back, one of the things what about the Turnpike Commission? I want you to think about this. There's this argument about privatizing it. I want to talk about that, and I want to go to what Mike Sturla mentioned is this healthcare business, and I think that's going to be the #1 priority ultimately. Maybe you'll disagree with me on this in the upcoming agenda that Governor Rendell will recommend. All right, this is Pennsylvania Newsmakers. Should the Turnpike be sold? Who wants to buy it? When we return.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is presented by the Pennsylvania Credit Union Association. Pennsylvania Credit Unions, where people are worth more than money. And by the Energy Association of Pennsylvania, Pennsylvania's energy information source. This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is presented by Pennsylvania Medical Society. Doctors and patients, preserve the relationship. And by the Pennsylvania Manufacturers Association. Business in Pennsylvania is our business.
Hi, welcome back to the program Point Counterpoint with Representatives Sturla and Turzai, Mike and Mike. Actually, don't they have a sports show, Mike and Mike?
Yeah.
No, you don't pay. I think they do. Yeah. All right, I want to turn to you, Mike Sturla. Look, there is a lot of debate in the state right now, and I know it's a hot topic both in the legislature and in the executive branch about leasing the Turnpike. Whatever that means. I don't know if you can sell it or lease it or what to private operations in order to raise, they think, maybe billions over the long haul. Good idea, bad idea? What do you think?
I don't think we should necessarily sell it and divest ourselves of an asset, but you know, the concept of leasing it sounds interesting.
Yeah.
You know, let some private managers in there to see what they can do. As long as there's enough protections to make sure that, you know, we don't see, you know, rates on the Turnpike go to outrageous sums.
Any more than they are, right?
Yeah, right,
Any more than they are.
Well,
look at it this way. We could put gaming parlors, which Representative Turzai would love. We'll put a whole bunch of gaming parlors.
Right.
But, okay, but Mike Turzai, do you think this is something that is more likely to happen or less likely given the debate over the last couple of months?
Oh, I think it's more likely. I'll be honest with you. I would implode that Turnpike Commission tomorrow.
You would sell it and he would lease it, okay?
You know, Chicago did that, Illinois with the Skyway, and Indiana did it with their Turnpike. I mean, look, we were talking on the break about how you go to the restrooms on that Turnpike, they're filthy.
I do think we all agree there that they need
something has to happen to that Turnpike. It's one of the vestiges of Pennsylvania that makes everybody think, that and the Liquor Control Board, that makes everybody think we're still in the industrial age in the state. Well, the rest has moved ahead.
All right, but both of you, let's get some agreement or disagreement. Both of you think this could be a big item on your agenda. Now, you have to do this, right? This has to come by the legislature.
Yeah.
Governor Rendell can't, go out and sell it tomorrow. You guys have to agree to this.
I would agree. Yeah, no gas tax, and let's sell the Turnpike.
Okay. All right. Now let's turn to. Hey, he brought up gas tax. Let me slip something in here. Governor Rendell had to take use about $400 million, give or take a couple, from the highway funds to put into the mass transit operations. Over the last year, they're running a deficit. We've got miles and miles of roads that badly in need of repair, hundreds of miles, perhaps bridges. We've got the mass transit. Mike Sturla, let me turn to you. This is a thorny problem, given the deficits. Is that something that you guys feel you must take up?
I think it's something that needs to be addressed. Yeah, you can't just continue to let the infrastructure fall apart. One of the things I'd like to see is for us to give back a lot of those roads to local municipalities. We're one of the few states. I mean, Governor Pinchot, it was supposedly the great thing. He took us out of the mud, years and years ago. But, what it's done is left us with a road system that the state controls more roads than almost any other state in the nation.
I think it is more than any other state.
Yeah.
But then don't the local municipalities have to find, you're just going to have to fund them, aren't you?
But then it's a determination of whether or not those local roads get used or not. And the locals understand that. Well, we're paying for local roads that, in some cases, the locals will tell you nobody uses. But it's somebody's pet project, and we could talk about divesting ourselves of roads. There's a whole lot of roads.
But you guys ultimately are going to have to come up with what they call dedicated funding. You guys are going to have to figure out a way to pay for mass transit and for no?
I think the first thing that's got to happen, sure you can have that discussion, but the first thing that has to happen, look at our Port Authority, which we call our mass transit in the Allegheny County area. It is a bloated bureaucracy. They've had these deferred retirement option plans for management. Management was picking up, while they're making their salaries, they're also collecting their pension and putting into a side account. It was out of control. They've got as many retirees almost as they have paid employees, and people were retiring at age 47, 48.
So your point is you want internal reform in some of these operations before you get... All right, when we come back, I think it's going to be number one on Rendell's agenda. Health care reform, 1.2 million Pennsylvanians without any coverage, 1.7 million Medicaid recipients. Health care is a huge problem. What will Governor Rendell do? Stay with us, and we hope to tell you when we return.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is presented by Highmark Blue Shield, changing the way health plans work for business with a variety of plan options for employers and more choices for employees. Information is available at highmark.com. Have a greater hand in your company's health. And by the Pennsylvania Healthcare Association, the future of long-term care. This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is presented by the Pennsylvania Builders Association, building today for a better tomorrow, and by the Pennsylvania Cyber Charter School, bringing educational innovation and freedom to the children of Pennsylvania.
Hi, welcome back to Point Counterpoint with Representatives Sturla and Turzai. We're chatting about now Governor Rendell, who will do his inaugural on January 16, and then is it the first Tuesday in February, I think, or it's a Tuesday, I think, where he makes his address to you guys.
Budget address, yeah.
Yeah, budget address, and of course that's the huge, sets the stage for the debate over the budget. All right, Mike Sturla, let me turn to you on health care. I think, and I could be wrong, that Governor Rendell has made it clear 1.2 million Pennsylvanians without any coverage. He wants to take a whack at that, as they did in some other states. I think we might see a very ambitious proposal out of the governor for covering a lot of those. What's your sense of that?
Yeah, I think it'll be the number one priority here in Pennsylvania. Quite frankly, I think it'll be the number one priority in the presidential election coming up. Yep. 10% of the state's population. We covered all kids. We made sure that all kids have access to health insurance. We were fought tooth and nail along the way in the process of trying to do that. But you have working Pennsylvanians that are out there. We're not talking about people that are on welfare and collecting medical assistance benefits at this point in time. We're talking about working Pennsylvanians that have no health coverage. That's who's in need of health care coverage here.
Now, Mike Turzai, if Governor Rendell does it, it's likely to use the current system. He's not going to reinvent the wheel. I don't know if the legislature would pass a bill requiring, as Massachusetts did, everyone to get health care coverage. What's your sense about what you think might be doable in terms of extending coverage, and what are the how might it occur?
I think there's three issues with healthcare reform. One, the issue of crowd out. Is the governor saying that he does not want private employers to be engaged in the business of providing health care? He has to ask that paradigm. And if we continue to make it a state-provided program, then are we saying that because what will happen is that employers will say, well, look, I don't need that cost. Go ahead and take it.
Well, yeah, small business people are paying, $10,000, $12,000 per employee because of the rising healthcare costs. We've had a lot of them on this program. Yeah, I think you're right. They're willing now, even though it may not be their philosophical.
That's right.
They might say, "You guys take it over."
And it presents a real problem. I think that if the governor is going to look at some real reform in how we provide health care coverage, I'd take a look at Massachusetts. The idea that it requires everybody to, in fact, get health coverage, right? I mean, that's the whole point.
And some people can afford it, but just choose not to buy it. There are a lot of people who can't, admittedly.
Yeah.
It's a pretty... Mike, let me ask you this question. There are ways to do it. One is to do more pools, if we talk about larger...
Yeah.
For example, why does every school district go out and compete on its own, with health coverage? Why do all the municipalities? Why can't we get into... there ought to be ways to go ahead.
Yeah,
exactly where I'm heading.
I think there are efficiencies in the system.
Yeah.
You look at individuals that are self-employed. They can't go out and get a group policy with other individuals that are self-employed. That kind of stuff is outrageous. But even when we did the Children's Health Insurance Program, what we heard from the insurance companies was, you might be able to sell it cheaper than we can. Mm-hmm. Well, what's so bad about that? What we're talking about here is people getting health care coverage. Mm-hmm. This isn't about, who gets to sell it or who gets a commission on it or what it should be about providing health care for all Pennsylvanians.
Yeah. And as you, we got about a minute left. Let me frame this. People get coverage anyway, but they just go into the hospitals and the hospitals provide the coverage and don't get any reimbursement for it, which no one can argue that that's fair, right?
Look, health care coverage, people need to be covered for health care. I don't have any doubt about that. The issue is what's the best way to deliver that health care? I'm willing to take a look at the Massachusetts program. I do think as a part of any health care reform package, you got to have lawsuit abuse reform too. I think that the trial lawyers are winning at the expense of health care coverage. And that's got to change, too. That's got to be a component part of it, Terry.
All right, great update. Two of the brightest guys in the General Assembly, people who pay a lot of attention to policy. Thanks for being on the program. We'll see you next week for another edition of Pennsylvania Newsmakers, and as they say, stay well.